Oops.
Oh, hey everybody, we are live. We are at our second installment for marketing this afternoon. We have got Mark Glesne with us, and we are just so excited for us to be able to share all of these wonderful presenters with you guys. So first, give a warm welcome to Mark, and Ann is our moderator for the chat, and we are going to be jumping off of here.
Terrific. All right, well, I'm going to try to figure out how these slides all work. I haven't done StreamYard before, but it looks pretty cool. So hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be online with you. My name is Mark Glesne, and I have the honor of being the marketing director at HarperCollins Christian Publishing. As I understand it, you're coming out of a session with Jerry Helms. You're going to be moving into a session with Victoria Oosteen. And so if you can get through my session, you'll get to hear some more from some of the smartest folks at the company. And so just honored to be here, excited to provide some value to you guys, some insights. Let's see if my slides work here. So on my first slide, I just like always keeping my wife next to me in my slides because she makes me look a lot better. And so that's my wife, Carissa. We've been married almost 15 years, and my college sweetheart, I should say, met out in California. Neither of us are from California, but we both went out there for college. And we have the privilege of having 3 children. And so if you can see that, those are our 3 kiddos. On the far right is my oldest, Ethan. He's my oldest. He is my type A perfectionist, borderline Pharisee at times, rule follower. To the far left is Asher, our middle boy. His name means happy and blessed, and he certainly is. And then my little baby girl in the middle, Maisie James, is our little firecracker, and she thinks she runs the house. And so just a quick bit about our story. As I said, I moved to California for college, and was out in California for about 18 years, spent way too much money in taxes. I don't know if anyone on here is from California, but about 2.5 years ago, we made our exit, and I took the role at HarperCollins Christian Publishing, and have been so excited to be working with this company. We love Nashville. We moved to Tennessee, and we just absolutely are endeared to it. And let's see, again, sorry, a little bumpy with the slides here. I have what I consider to be the single greatest job in publishing, and that is working with 2 premier authors at our company, both Max Lucado and Lysa TerKeurst, if you're familiar with them. And so it's a privilege and an honor to be a part of the brand leadership team for both of those authors. And so my team coordinates not only internal departments and business groups as it relates to these authors, but we also then manage the brand leadership teams with the author teams. Max is in Texas, Lysa is in North Carolina. And so our team has sort of been doing this remote thing for quite a while, at least as it relates to our author teams. But I say this about both authors, and I mean it. They are absolutely in person as you would expect from reading their books. And so Max is every bit as kind and gracious. Lysa is every bit as vulnerable and witty and fun and gracious. And they are just a treat and absolute joy to work with. And so I've been working with them for a little over 2.5 years, again, as the marketing director. And I'm just really honored to have, as I said, what I think to be the best job in the company. So with that, I want to talk a bit about social media strategy. And so I've been in digital marketing quite specifically for about 17 or so years, since 2003. And so I began my marketing career in 2003, which, as you may recall, was when MySpace and LinkedIn launched. And so I've really kind of been here for the thrust of the entire social media revolution. It's certainly been a stream. I'm not limited to social media. Love brand marketing, love digital, love e-commerce, love web, love content, love affiliate, love event, love in-person, love PR. But I've always got a sweet spot in my heart for social media and strategy. And so what I wanted to do today is give you all, because I'm not a writer, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of great insights about writing. And I'd like to start to say the best thing you can do for your marketing plan is have great product, whether that's in article form, in blog form, in book form, in journal form, whatever that form is as a writer for you. ultimately the best marketing can't overcome a terrible product. And so to continue to hone your craft and be absolutely excellent to the glory of God alone in your craft is the single greatest thing you could do for any marketing strategy and certainly social media strategy. But what I want to do is I want to give you a bit of a content framework, if you will. I often teach that I don't like to at all teach people what to think about social media. I want to teach people how to think about social media. And so that's really my goal, is to give you a bit of a process, one look at a content building, content strategy, social media strategy process that I hope, regardless of your style of writing, regardless of your genre, regardless of your industry, regardless of your product, your business structure, any of that, that you can go through this process and build out a purposeful, value-driven content strategy and deploy it via social media. Because, you know, one of the things that a lot of people think is that social media is just a content distribution platform. And I would argue that it's actually a storytelling platform. It's to provide story and human connection online. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into it more. And so with that, I actually want to start with what I would call the why. And I do this because there are going to be days where you don't want to execute. There's going to be days where you don't want to log on, and maybe you don't need to, you don't have to. But there's something very powerful about having the why in your pocket and in your heart. And so, and I'm not saying the why behind social media. I don't mean why do I want to post on social media. I'm talking about the why behind what you do. Why do you write? Why do you write about what you write about? What's your purpose? What's your drive? What's your mission? What's your goal? What does success look like to you? What do the lives impacted look like to you from your work? And so often where we need to start with a content strategy is not the content. It's the why that precedes the content. And so that would be kind of my first point. I don't have too many slides. They're pretty general, but if you're taking notes, that's the first thing I would do. Is you've got to spend a little time working on your why. If that's a mission statement, if that's a couple bullet points, whatever that looks like, because it's easy to work when you're inspired, but the why will get you through the days you're tired, right? And so if your why is big enough, your behavior will follow. And it's kind of a crude example, but one that an entrepreneur person that I listen to says, if the doctor told you that you've got to lose 20 pounds in 6 months or you're going to die, we would figure out a way, wouldn't we, to lose 20 pounds. We would find the resources, we would find the people, we would find the community, we would find the drive, we would find new time to work out, new diligence to eat right. We would find a reason, we would find a way to do that because our why is big enough, right? And so the same is true for deploying business and marketing, is if your why is big enough, your results and your behavior will follow. So with that, that's my first guidance to you, is to really take a look at your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? What is your hope? What is your dream for that? What is your mission? And when you begin to lay that out, I think you're going to see that, again, some of this is going to start to fall in place more naturally, perhaps, than you thought. After that, I like to talk about the value that you bring. And so this is really a key part of marketing that a lot of people miss. I think a lot of people associate social media promotion in general with promotion. And promotion is okay, but promotion is not a content strategy. It's a badgering strategy. It's a nagging strategy. And none of us like brands that nag us all day long and follow us around the internet and social media, nagging us with sales. And sales are okay. We run sales. Max and Lysa run sales. I run sales. But it's not the majority of what we do. And so what we talk about is the value of the work that we're bringing, the value of the perspective and the voice that we're bringing, because that's what we're exchanging in the market, is value for time, for resource, perhaps for money, for attention. And so after you've got your why, I want you to really think real clearly and jot down some notes about the value that you bring to your work, in your work, through your work. On behalf of your work. What's the value that you're offering the market? What's the value that you're giving a reader that's on the other side of your words, drawing in from what you've poured into on the pages or on the web page. What's the value behind that? What's the driving value mechanism? And I have kind of a slang term. We call it kind of edutain or edutainment. It's this idea that there's really kind of two big buckets in the online world and in social media, is that we're generally looking, apart from connection with other people, we're looking for education and entertainment. And so educating people is a huge place to start when you talk about the value. Even if you're a fiction writer, you can educate readers about that writing process, about the characters, about the time that your book, the time period in which your book takes place, other events going around in world history during the time of that book. And so be thinking to yourself, what do I have to offer the world that I can teach the world? What can I teach the world? Right. And so hopefully you see that I'm kind of modeling this a little bit. I've told you I work with Max and Lysa, and I'm not here selling their books, but there's a chance if I provide you enough value throughout the course of this live, that the next time you see Max and Lysa, you'll have a little bit of a more affinity for them as a brand, not for me, but for the brand that I'm sort of representing in this. And so what I'm doing is I'm teaching, I'm giving, I'm bringing value that ultimately raises the profile of the brand on which I'm working. And so thinking about where you can educate people, thinking about where you can entertain people. Edutainment is kind of two ways to think about the value that you bring. And so after you've got your why in one pocket, and now you've got your value that you're offering in the market, I think you've really got your hands full and you're ready to start to deploy thinking about a social media content strategy. And I would start, as you heard me say earlier, I always start social media strategy with people. Social media is ultimately about people. It's a storytelling platform, yes, but who is telling stories and who is hearing those? People. So I'm an optimist when it comes to social media. You can use anything in this world for good. You can use anything in this world, virtually anything in this world for good, virtually anything in this world for evil. Our mission that we've been given is this ministry of reconciliation. It's reconciling all things to God, right, as Paul wrote. And so social media is a way by which we can continue to give out the message of the gospel and to continue reconciling all things to God as he is reconciling all things to himself. And that's ultimately people. He didn't come to save trees. He didn't come to save mountains, though he created them. He came to save people. Jesus came for people. And so thinking about the who, right? So we've got our why behind what we're doing. We've got the value of what we're doing. Now we need to start leaning into the who. And so I've got, again, a pretty arbitrary slide here, just symbolizing that what I want you to start doing is not thinking of your audience. I want you to start thinking of people, actual individuals. Doesn't have to be 3. It could be 5. Probably shouldn't be 20, but who is the ideal customer for where you are, what you write, and the value that you bring to market. So again, after you've got your why, after you've got your value, I would write down very specifically 3, 4, 5 ideal customers. Who are they? It can be by gender, it could be by age, it could be by interest, it could be by a lot of things. It was interesting recently in an interview, Max disclosed that and even those of us on his brand team didn't necessarily know this, that when Max Lucado writes a book, he thinks of 3 people in his mind. He thinks of a single mom, he thinks of an elderly person, and he thinks of a truck driver. And it's just fascinating that his whole writing career, some 40 years, those are the folks that he writes to in his den. He doesn't write to millions of people. He honestly never thought he would be able to write it. Enough people would buy his books to fill one stadium. Tells a story about running this around a stadium in Brazil. And he asked God, if I could just reach enough people to fit in that stadium, like 100,000 people. Now 140 million products, right? Later, Max is still writing to 3 people. And that's a single mom, an elderly person, and a truck driver. And so I would think very acutely and very, I think long and hard about the ideal customer that you have and how you can best serve their needs, the felt needs. And so I wrote down a couple examples for better, for worse, just jot them down before I jumped on here. And so as we talk about books and being in the book world, you could break this up very generally in terms of your avatars or your target audience. You can get very specific. It can be a single mother, age 30 to 40, who lives in an urban environment in, on the East Coast. It could be very specific. It could be very general. Some general approaches could be fiction readers, nonfiction readers, Amish fiction readers. I even like this one, non-readers, right? And so starting to think about, are there people out there that we would love to change their mind on this whole reading thing with our words, with our projects, with our books, with our journals, with our blogs? And so again, thinking about call them avatars, if you will, but this target demographic, these people, who are the people that you're writing for? And that goes back to some of your why and the value that you bring, and then who are the people that you're bringing that why and that value to. And so I would take some time, later today, tonight, to think about those folks. The next thing I want to talk about real quick is the what. So we've got our why, we've got our value, we've got our who, and we've got the what. And this is where I'm going to try to keep it simple, because it can get really overwhelming really fast. And so one of the things that I like to do, let's see what my next slide is here, is I like to take a look at 3 general buckets. I'm a rule of thirds guy, if you haven't noticed already. And so I want to take some time to break this down, because what this means is this is at the point where you're beginning to understand who you are, the value that you bring, the people you're writing for. But as it relates, this is a social media strategy session. So how does this all roll into social media strategy? And this is really where it starts to hit the ground. And so what we want to do is take a look at your industry, your vertical, where you are, the space you write in, the genre you write in, and come up with 7 to 10 very general topics, okay? And for each of, and again, it can be things like reading, okay? It could be, let's see, I pulled up a couple, I had some more notes. It could be reading, it could be writing, it could be books, it can be all those things, right? 7 to 10 very general topics that your target audience is at least interested in, okay? So thinking back to your target audience, what interests those folks, okay? And if you're a book author, you've got a book, I'm here to tell you, your content strategy is not your book. It's all the interests around your book that would draw people to you, and then to learn that you have a book that they could ultimately purchase online or in person. And so what are the 7 to 10 very general topics? Again, books, reading, writing, process, Amish, right? If we're going back to my Amish fiction example, Amish, fiction in general, nonfiction, those sorts of things. What are the 7 to 10 general topics? And I'll apply it outside of reading. Maybe this will help as well. So if you have a running store, okay, if you've got a retail shop that sells running shoes and running apparel, you don't have to only talk about running. You can talk about health. You can talk about nutrition. You can talk about strength training. You can talk about family activities. You can talk about outdoors. You can talk about all these general topics around that, which start to kind of top of funnel bring people that are interested or could be ultimately interested in what you've written or in your products, and it starts to distill those down. Now, within each of those, what I want you to do after you've done that, you don't have to do it right now, but I want you to take 7 to 10 really big general topics, and I want you to go through that process now with each one of them, and then put 5 to 7 subtopics underneath those, right? So if you've got a general topic of reading, let's talk about how this would play out with that one, because that just seems what am I going to do? I'm just going to write about reading. I've got a book. Why would I just write about reading? So one way that could play out is that you could say, my general topic is reading. I want to reach out to readers. And a subtopic could be, why do people read? Right? That's an interesting question. Or why do people not read? That's another subtopic within reading. So we've got our general topic of reading. We've got our subtopic of why do people read? Why do people not like to read? Where do people like to read? How often do people like to read? What different types of readers are there? That sort of thing. And so after you've got your 7 to 10 general topics, I'd love to see 5 to 7 subtopics underneath each one of those general topics. So you can see how this starts to scale really quick. So if you have 10 general topics and 7 subs, guess what you have? You now have 70 parts. You have 70 bits of information that are starting to get you to a content strategy, but we're not even done yet. One more time, I want us to go into each one of those 5 to 7 subtopics and put 3 to 5 specific topics. You see what I'm doing here? So let's take your one general topic, put 5 to 7 subtopics underneath that, and then for each of those 5 to 7, 3 to 5 specific topics. All right. And so what that could sound like is, again, going back to our example of readers, if we're deploying content on social media to start to reach out and minister to and attract new eyeballs to our writing projects, our general topic is reading. Our subtopic could be why people read. And the article that could be posted to your blog, that could be the list that could be posted as a graphic to your Instagram, or be an infographic on Pinterest, or be an Instagram story or a Facebook story, or to be honest, could be a video that you do on Facebook, a video that you do on Instagram, a video that you do live with a friend on this specific topic, which could be 5 types of readers. Which one are you? You see how that worked from general reading into why people read. Now we're into a specific topic of 5 types of readers. Which one are you? I'd be curious to know what kind of reader I am based on your assessment as a writer, as an author, as a blogger. And so what you can see is that suddenly we've gotten from very general to very specific by going through this exercise. Now, these numbers are somewhat arbitrary. These are what I recommend. At the very least, if you could go get, your 7 general topics, your 5 subtopics, and your 3 specific topics, you're going to be taking a look at a lot of content that you can start to put out into the market. And so with that, I don't know if chat is up and running. I've got a little bit more. I wanted to leave time open for some questions. And so if you guys have those, you can start to pass those through. If not, we can talk a little bit more about this and how it plays out. But again, wanted to really focus in on how we come up with some of the content creation that we come up with. And again, coming from a general topic all the way down to these specific topics, that really is the what. That's really the what. And so with that, I've got one more slide, might even end a little early and give you some of your time back. And so I want to talk real quick just about the how. And so hopefully, again, going back to one of my earlier points, I didn't want to give you what to think about social media. I could talk about that all day. I could talk about the fact that Facebook owns 5 of the top 6 social media platforms, that Facebook has roughly 2.6 billion monthly active users, that live video is still king, that video is king, it outperforms images, it outperforms links, that your average video should be between 2 and 5 minutes per some studies that show that that's the optimum length of video. I don't want to necessarily tell you how to think or say you've got to be on Instagram, but don't worry about TikTok, or you should only be on TikTok and forget about Instagram. I don't want to tell you how to think about, what to think about social media. I wanted to show you how to think about social media. And so again, social media is the storytelling platform that is your content strategy flows into. It's not a strategy, and that's what I see. People up there flopping cat memes and happy Friday graphics. That doesn't ultimately get you closer to your goal, which I'm assuming as a writer is more readers. So a happy Friday graphic doesn't necessarily encourage people to engage with your content more and tell friends about it. And so what we want to do is, again, we want to reach all the way back inside to the why that we're doing it, the value that we're bringing, the people that we're bringing it to, and then the topics around your hemisphere, your ecosystem, your genre, your craft. Those general topics that apply to those target demographics the subtopics, the specific topics within that. And then the how, again, this is where I want to free you up to not feel like, man, if I'm not on all these platforms, I'm not doing it right. Or to think, well, I only have one, or I don't really like social media. I'm okay with Twitter, but I don't really like Instagram, or I love Instagram, but I can't stand Facebook, or TikTok scares the living daylights out of me. I have no idea why people are doing it. What I want to free you up to do is to see that the content drives the output. The social media execution is not the strategy itself. It's the content that you put into those empty pipelines. And so the how is really up to you. You're really free to operate in your social media platforms that you're most comfortable in. And I get the question quite a bit. Well, you know, Mark, and I do consulting on the side. And so I work with small businesses. I work with some nonprofits. And they say, well, how many social media websites should I be on? And my answer is always the same: as many as you can do well. That's it. If you can do one social media platform well, do it well. And as soon as you just really master it, and you've got a content strategy in place, and you're deploying articles and topics and graphics that support your mission, that support your craft, that support your product, and you've got one just, man, I'm just crushing it on Facebook. Okay, see how that translates to Instagram next. And if you're crushing both Facebook and Instagram, and man, you can do that in your sleep, maybe you add Twitter, maybe you add Pinterest, maybe you toy around with TikTok. The how is really up to you, because again, the platforms themselves are not the strategy. The content that you put into the platforms is the strategy. And so that's where we've got to focus on those topics, those subtopics, and those specific topics. And so with that, I think I ended a lot sooner. I kind of timed this out, and I thought I was going to go a whole 40 minutes. I'm usually kind of long-winded, but kept it pretty concise. And so I guess I can throw it back to the moderators if they want to pop back in, or if you guys want to start sending chats my way. I'm just here to answer any questions about social media. Again, I'm not a writer per se, so I don't have a lot of answers to how to write better. I'm sure you're getting that from a lot of other folks, but deploying social media strategy is kind of my thing. So there's Ann. Hello, Ann.
Hey, why don't we run through some of our top questions, and then we can see if it spirals into anything else.
Oh, cool. So I must not have been on I saw nothing coming in. Oh, see, I've got to click over to comments instead of private chat. No wonder. I was like, man, people, sorry, everyone. I was like, I am not resonating with anything. All right, let's do it.
All right. Let's see. Jen asked, for new authors, what's your best advice?
Best advice in terms of is to go through the process that I just laid out. And if you're looking for a starting point, Facebook is arguably the best starting point. Again, I'm not going to tell you what to think. I want to teach you how to think. But Facebook has 2.6 billion, monthly active users. Arguably, everyone in the world, it seems like, is on there. And it's the most versatile. What I mean by that is it accommodates everything. Video, long form, blogs, events, live, private, chat, message. It just has everything. And so you're really to execute a lot of different mediums within one platform. And so if someone stresses me and says, Mark, just give me the platform I should start with. I generally hate social media, but I want to start putting myself out there and I get the content strategy. I would say deploying on Facebook is a great place to start. But again, it's got to be only after you've gone through the content process, because I don't want someone to just go on Facebook and start flopping images up there and say, well, it's not really working. I could have told you it wouldn't work. You've got to have a content strategy behind the deployment and the storytelling platforms that you're going to deploy it onto. So hope that helps.
Great. Anne asks, can character interviews be a specific topic under the broad category of fiction?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you could go bonkers. Like, again, I kind of joked about like Amish fiction, but I mean, you can get into topics about furniture. You can get into characters. You can get into, characters that appear in a book. If you got a main character that walks into a general store, has a one-line interaction with the clerk at the front, you can write out a whole article, or you can go into a whole expose about the backdrop of that clerk, even though they seem like a minor character. So yeah, those interviews, all that sort of stuff is where I would get into that subtopic and then pull from that. And I've noticed too, in some spaces, those subtopics get refined really fast. So try to honor the process a little bit to make it a 3-step process. But I've seen it where that subtopic is like basically your specific topic that you want. Try to keep that middle subtopic a little more general, and then go get 3 or 5 more within that character study. But I think if I understand the question correctly, you're absolutely right. That's where I would put it.
So what is your advice about the consistency and timing of content?
Great question. Ultimately, that is, I would say, arbitrary based on algorithms now. So in the early days of all platforms, frequency has an advantage if you can learn the advantage, or you can learn the frequency. But as everyone has noticed, as soon as the social media platform gets saturated, the algorithm kicks in, and it's no longer really up to us. There are some best practices, like on Instagram, you don't want to be posting a photo every minute, right? But on Twitter, you can tweet every minute because it's gone in 30 seconds. It just disappears into the feed. So there are some generalities to that. What I generally try to do is not give someone a number, but I give them the challenge that if you're putting out quality content, you'll be shocked how often you can do it. If it's quality, that's the caveat. So if you are truly putting out terrific content that maps to felt need in the market, resonates with your target audience, that is well done, well crafted, that catches their attention, it can, it's interesting, it's a new approach, it's fun, it's educational, it's entertaining, you'd be surprised how often you can pump out content. What I've found, though, is that we actually have a hard time keeping up with the quality enough to be into some sort of rabid output. So I would say as often as you can put something truly terrific into the market, do it. If that's once a week, do it. If that's twice a day, do it. If it's 100 times a day, just don't do it on Instagram. So.
Great. Let's see. From the perspective of the traditional publisher, for a first-time author, what type of platform are you looking for? Are you looking for them to already have established?
Yeah, great question. I'd be lying if I said we don't scope social media. Now, again, I'm in a position where I oversee 2 authors and they have monster platforms. But I work with teams, of course, that have many, many authors, and they work with emerging authors. And I have done some smaller imprint work at the company as well, kind of as a specialty. And so Facebook and Instagram and Twitter are kind of the go-tos. That's fairly reasonable. Oftentimes you'll see, they've got a small Facebook, they got a cranking YouTube, and that's awesome too, and so I'd say those are probably the big 4 is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I have an affinity for video, just a huge affinity. I think it's very, very powerful. And so there's just a lot of opportunity in the video space. So I am putting more emphasis on YouTube. My team is putting more emphasis on YouTube. But in general, they're going to pop over to your Facebook and your Instagram, possibly your Twitter, possibly a YouTube, kind of in that sequence, I would say. It's a great question. So that's why it's important to be building your brand year round,
Yeah, great. Can we use strategy to create topics or Twitter chats?
Sorry, cut out just a little bit. I heard Twitter chats at the end.
So the question from Anne was, can I use this strategy to create topics for my Twitter chats?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's great. And I love that that's like an interactive component of that strategy, right? Like it doesn't have to be static. Like that strategy that I just laid out doesn't have to result in a blog post, right? It can end in a video. It can end in a chat discussion. That's such a cool idea. I hadn't even thought about that. I think that's really cool. Yes, absolutely.
And then I had a question on your thoughts on influencer marketing and how would you start getting involved with that as an author?
Yeah, I would first look for folks in the similar space. So kind of the key, like when Jesus taught in parables, a parable was always something you had to have a key to kind of unlock the meaning of it. For me, that key of the parable of influencer marketing, if you will, forgive the analogy, is that you are basically gaining access to someone's existing audience. I mean, that's not a shocker. Most people know that. So I would start with people that very clearly have the audience. that you should be speaking to. And I would worry first and foremost about, can I create an authentic relationship with that influencer, not their audience? Because what happens is people try to pass through that influencer so fast. And I'm a people first marketer. I bill myself as not a B2B marketer, a B2C marketer, or a B2B2C, business to consumer, business to consumer. Forget all that. I call myself a P2P marketer. I'm a person to person marketer, or people to people marketer. So my advice on influencer would be to strike up a truly authentic relationship with that influencer first, and to probably start by saying, can I offer you any value? Can I offer you any value? Can I offer my small, my growing, my medium, my explosive, my huge audience, whatever it is, can I interview you to my audience? And then essentially striking up that authentic relationship. That's really where because influencer marketing has exploded, obviously, in the last 10 to 15 years, and it just costs so much money. I was at a consumer product sales and marketing firm prior to coming to HarperCollins. And I know way more about hair tools than any man in this world should know about hair tools and curlers and flat irons. And the amount of money that it would cost to get someone to feature you on their YouTube is absolutely bonkers. But that said, when it's authentic and there's a relationship, a lot of that just, I'm trying to use you to get to your audience, goes out the window, and you actually start to care for people. That's where true influencer marketing comes about. Lysa just brought a book to our attention last week that she wants to work on and put it through a new process, because she and the author are friends. Not that you have to be friends with everyone, but it's a great place to start is actually having authentic relationships with people, because it's going to be more authentic when they speak to their audience anyways. So all that's to say, back to the original question, is I would start by taking a look at those who are very clearly in your space before you start branching out, that have a very similar product or output or business or journal, whatever your product is. Find the other people, start to form a friendship, a coalition of friendships, and then start to see naturally how influencer marketing, quote unquote, starts to pour out from genuine relationship.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What about when you're getting started in marketing with a publisher, how does that relationship work? How much should you expect the publisher to do versus what you should do as an author?
Brilliant question. And I have not been in publishing my whole career. I was at one publishing company before this. It was years ago, but I know that scale has tilted very differently. And so it used to be when you finish the manuscript and it goes to print, the author is done. That is far from the case. I don't prefer that to be the case, by the way. I don't long for those days. And I don't think authors should long for those days either, to be honest. What you don't want, I believe, and I work for a publisher, I don't think you want the publisher to command your audience anymore. I don't think you should. I think you should command your audience and bring that to the publisher. And the publisher will work with you on that and best practices, and you're going to learn a lot working with a marketing team in-house. But in a day and age, in the digital revolution, in social media, having a personal brand, having that author brand, and I'm not saying, look, if you come to our company, I pray you never want to leave. But if you leave, if you're with one publisher and you've relied on all their marketing and you move to another, you're starting at square zero, right? And so to have ownership of your email list, to have ownership of your web traffic, to have ownership of your socials, and then what the publisher is accustomed to doing now is saying, hey, that's great, right? Now let's use that and let's work with that. We're not thinking, no, we have to be the one that starts your Facebook page, or we're going to start a separate Facebook page than the one you have because now you're with us. You're going to see that scale has tilted quite a bit. All that's to say, there is a lot of impetus on the author, and I think that's good. I really do. That doesn't mean that the marketing team at the publishing company isn't going to do anything by any means. What we're going to do is hopefully we're going to come alongside this engine that you've already been producing, and we're going to put it on steroids, and we're going to bring massive distribution to it. We're going to have you in places you didn't know books could go, and so I think that's just a really exciting thing that I want authors to be pumped about. I worry about an author that longs for the days where they could just hand over a manuscript and not have to worry about marketing it, because then you've lost the opportunity to build a personal brand, and you've reduced it to a single product at that point. So
Well, thank you so much for answering all of our questions and sharing such valuable knowledge with all of us.
My pleasure. It was fun.
I know everyone else is really excited to hear what you had to say today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Good luck with the rest of the conference. I think Victoria, my colleague, is up next, and you guys are going to love her. She's terrific. If you learned anything from me, you're going to learn 40 times more from Victoria. So.
All right. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.